So I have some channels where I learn about different countries, and for a long time now people have been asking me to learn about Netherlands, so that's what I'm doing with this channel. And Netherlands is a country I really enjoy. I've been to Amsterdam several times. I always say that my two favourite cities in the world are Amsterdam and Tokyo for different reasons, but I just love Amsterdam. I love the country of Netherlands. When I was in high school, I went to a place called Valkenburg for a school trip. Really enjoyed that as well. But today we're going to be learning about Netherlands to start with the Geography Now video. That always gives a good overview of a country. And you can tell me what videos I should watch next to learn more. And tell me more about the country. Tell me anything interesting. Let's watch this one first of all, and we can learn some.
Hey guys, so this is gonna be a little awkward. Why? Because 2 years ago, my Dutch friend Vincent, who used to do the animations before I regrettably hired Ken.
Wait, what?
He came and visited here in LA. Long story short, I promised him he could be in the Netherlands episode, so we pre-shot some footage, and this was the intro we made. I flew over. This guy, a real Dutchman, say hi to Vincent. Right here. Hey, Vincent. Hey. Vincent, I know the Dutch are tall, but just step down from the box, okay? Just step down.
You get off of your box
It's
then.
fake.
Good Barbie.
I can never top those days. Oh, and this episode is on the Netherlands.
It's time to learn geography.
Now! Everybody, I'm your host, Barbs. Now, there are many countries that deal with water issues. Some lack water, some have too much water, and some, like the Netherlands, have bridled the wild stallion and have learned how to control the water and use it to their advantage. Water is probably the most powerful element in the Netherlands, and without it, they would be, I don't know, pretty useless. So what do you say, 2016 Vincent?
En dan nu, politieke geografie.
Yeah, just when they're mentioning about water, that is one thing I love about Amsterdam is the canals. Just walking alongside there, so many different ones of course, but it's just such a nice thing, very unique. But I don't really know much about the other cities and towns in the Netherlands. Is there similar canals and things in the other cities and towns in the Netherlands?
So, yeah, stop calling this place Holland. That's just one part of the country, even though their country's national tourism website is called holland.com. You're not helping us here, Dutchies.
Yeah, I want to stop that straight away as well, because growing up in Scotland, I always called the country Holland. It's only in the last couple of years that, in Britain anyway, it seems like Netherlands is being more used. Why was that a common misconception that the country was called Holland? What is the difference, or is there anybody in the Netherlands that calls it Holland?
Oh, and there's a town called The Hulk. First of all, the country is located in northwestern Europe along the North Sea, bordered by Germany and Belgium. The country is divided into 12 provinces. Here's 2016 Vincent naming all of them for you.
They are Limburg, Noord-Holland, Zeeland, Zuid-Holland, Utrecht, Gelderland, Overijssel, Drenthe, Groningen, Friesland, North-Holland, and the newest province, Flevoland. Almost all of Flevoland was reclaimed from the Zuiderzee in the 1950s. So besides being famous for making cheese and clogs, we also make our own land.
The country kind of has two capitals. Amsterdam, the largest city and economic hub of the country, and home to the Royal Palace. And just to skip over, the third largest city, The Hague, acts as the second capital, which holds the seat of government, as well as the International Court of Justice. The second largest city, though, would be Rotterdam, which holds the busiest seaport in all of Europe. The busiest airport, though, is of course Amsterdam's Schiphol International, Europe's third busiest airport, carrying nearly 70 million passengers annually. Now we reach the overseas territories.
Yeah, just with regards to the mainland Netherlands and all the different provinces, do these different provinces have their own unique cultures, or can you tell when you go between one province? Is there any differences in maybe like the language, anything that's different or unique about each of those provinces? What's your favourite province that isn't the one that you grew up on? What other ones do you like and why? And it said there that Rotterdam is the second biggest city. Is that where the rivalry between Ajax and Feyenoord comes from? Is it just the two biggest cities? Are they the two biggest supported football teams? Is that where that football rivalry comes from? And I had a friend that lived in Den Haag, and she really enjoyed it, said it was a really nice place.
Apart from the mainland European part, the country actually holds sovereignty over 6 other island entities in the Caribbean, remnants of the colonial past. These are collectively called the Dutch Caribbean. And here's where it gets a little confusing. Technically, the Netherlands is a country made up of 4 countries, the mainland Netherlands, as well as 3 other constituent countries, kind of like what Wales and Scotland are to the UK. They are
I never knew
Aruba,
that.
Curacao, and Saint Martin, which is actually half of an island shared with the French overseas territory of the same name, but in French. This means that this one island is the only area which the Netherlands technically borders France. These guys hold a high level of autonomy, they can have their own constitutions and currency. Otherwise, the remaining 3 islands are Bonaire, St. Eustatius, and Little Saba, which by the way has the shortest airport runway in the world. These 3 fall under the title of special municipalities and do not belong to any province. They are directly controlled by the Dutch government. However, in 2011, they decided to switch currencies and adopt the US dollar. All these islands lie in the subregion known as the Lesser Antilles. Aruba, Curacao, and Bonaire are usually referred to as the ABC Islands, lying in the subregion of the Leeward Antilles, whereas St. Eustatius, Saba, and St. Martin, usually called the SSS Islands, are located in the subregion of the Leeward Islands. Keep in mind, at one point, all 6 of these islands were called the Netherland Antilles and operated collectively as a single constituent country with the capital at Willemstad in Curacao. They even competed separately in the Olympics. With the exception of Aruba, who had autonomy in 1986, it wasn't until the early 2000s when they all voted for their future, and it kind of went like this. Okay guys, you have 4 options for your future. Choose wisely. You can have closer ties to us, remain just as you are in the Netherlands Antilles, autonomy as a constituent country within the Kingdom of the Netherlands, or you can opt for complete independence as a new nation and break away from us.
We vote for autonomy as constituent countries.
Me too. What the?
We want closer ties and we'll settle for special municipality status.
Really, Bonaire? You're one of us, the ABC Island. You're really gonna ditch us like that and leave us with this half-Frenchy magoo?
Yep, deal with it. And that's basically how it went down. So there you go. That's how you make a Netherlands. Waterways dominate the country.
Yeah, so with regards to that, what about Suriname? Is Suriname related to Netherlands? Because I believe that a lot of like the best footballers from Netherlands have some Suriname descent or Suriname heritage in them. How is that linked? Maybe it'll come on to that as well. But with regards to these islands, the Dutch Antilles, is that somewhere people in the Netherlands would go for vacation or anything like that? Have you ever been to any of them? Do you know anybody that's been there? They look like beautiful places. Tell me more about them. Anything interesting?
Netherlands. Waterways dominate the country, though. There's even a town with no roads and only canals. But how did it end up this way? Somewhere around the 9th century, people were kind of fed up with all the flooding, and they invented these seawalls known as dikes, which surrounded polders or reclaimed land plots protected by the dikes. To this day, the Netherlands has reclaimed about 1/5 of its total landmass from the sea.
So, what would happen if all the dikes were destroyed and all the water just came and flooded everything?
Scientists speculate that the country would go from looking like this to this.
Whoa, Amsterdam would be gone.
Yep. Luckily, the Dutch are fantastic engineers and have been taming this dragon for centuries. And speaking of engineering, there are so many notable spots to check out in case you ever visit. So many museums, but the most notable one probably being the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam, the Royal Palace, the Van Gogh Museum, the Anne Frank House, numerous castles like these, numerous star-shaped fortress towns, so many amusement parks like these, the enclaves and exclaves of Barrel Nassau, we talked about this in the Belgium episode, the world's largest flower garden at Keukenhof, Austerlitz Pyramid, this prehistoric burial site, and of course there are somewhere around 1,000 historic windmills left in the country from the 1800s, mostly in the Kinderdijk area, a UNESCO heritage site. Keep in mind, though, the country has a ton of modern wind turbines.
Okay, just before that, with regards to like the attractions and things, I've been to quite a few of them. For me, Rijksmuseum is one of the best museums, if not the best in the world. I loved it. It's huge, so much to see in there. It's for me, it's on par with the Louvre in Paris. And when it mentioned something like how good Netherlands or the population are at engineering, do you feel like Netherlands is underrated in that respect? I think when people talk about Europe and engineering, they always think about Germany, but when you see the country in Netherlands in these engineering feats, do you think Netherlands is underrated in that respect? And yeah, with regards to the attractions, like obviously some of them are in Amsterdam and so on, but what's your most underrated attraction? Where do you think people should visit? What's the interesting places to visit or things to do in Netherlands that maybe not a lot of people know about, or even the ones that people do know about? What's your favourite one to visit? I also like the Heineken Museum. That was quite good, very interactive, quite fun.
In the Kinderdijk area, a UNESCO heritage site. Keep in mind though, the country has a ton of modern wind turbines that help supply energy to the nation, a topic that will be discussed in Greek.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot to kind of see there about Netherlands. You can see there's a lot to do. Again, I only really know about Amsterdam with regards to things to do and the architecture and how it looks and so on. I don't really know much about the rest of the Netherlands, so that's why one of the reasons I started this channel, to learn more about the country, and I'm hoping to come later this year again as well. We've got friends that live in Maastricht, so we're hoping to visit them and maybe do some things more in the south of Netherlands as well.
Greek philosopher Pythias visited in the 3rd century BC, and he said about this place, more people have died in the struggle against water than in the struggle against men. The Netherlands is really unlike any other country in Europe because in order for them to even have physical land, a lot of work has to go into it. For one, the country is the lowest country in Europe, elevation-wise. Over a quarter of the land and a fifth of the population lies below sea level, and about half of the land lies less than a meter above sea level. The lowest point actually being here at Zuidplaspolder, and the highest point of the mainland European part of the country at a small hill called Valseberg, just over 1,000 feet or 322 meters high. However, in the entire kingdom of the Netherlands, the highest point would actually be Mount Scenery, a potentially active volcano on the island of Saba in the Caribbean. Back to mainland Europe though, within this complex system of waterways and canals, the famous Rhine River that goes through all of Europe and the longest in the country actually ends in Rotterdam. The largest body of water would be Lake or Bay Ijsselmeer, contained within the N302 and E22 highways.
Okay, it's a natural man-made body of water. It's hard to determine if it's the largest natural body of water. I actually never knew about this lake. Have you been there? It does look huge even in comparison to the rest of the landmass of the Netherlands. Is there any nice little towns to visit that are on this lake? Is it a beautiful lake to be? Is there things to do here as well? Yeah, I actually never knew about that, embarrassingly.
In order to manage all the flooding in the south, though, the Netherlands has undergone one of the largest engineering projects in modern history. The Delta Works is a series of massive elevated levees that close off sea estuaries, preventing flooding. They even have backup levees in case one down the line bursts. In the north, though, the Walden Islands act as kind of like natural barriers against the sea. All this land reclamation has left many of the inland areas exposed to what are labeled as the largest open sand drifts in Europe. Keep in mind, they are not deserts, but rather strange, wet, sandy plots in the middle of green shrubbery. A rare natural site to come across anywhere in the world. So, in a nutshell, the entire country is basically one big river delta.
We should hang out sometime.
Whew, so that's just about it for now. I gotta get my triple shot of espresso break, which means we need a guy who knows a few things.
Besides all the water chaos, the Netherlands is quite a powerful nation considering its size. They rank in the top 20 largest world economies, usually around 17th or 16th place, and they rank somewhere in the top 5 to 10 largest exporters on Earth. In fact, they have the oldest stock exchange in the world, dating back to 1602.
Yeah, so with regards to exports, one of the biggest in the world, what's the main exports of the Netherlands? What makes up that number?
Didn't that lead to like the whole tulip mania thing where people sold a single bulb for the price of like an entire ship?
That was not the stock market. That was just a socio-economic phenomenon, and at its height sold for 10 times the annual wage of a skilled craftsman. Anyway, today, although they produce about 80% of the world's tulips and over half of the world's cut flower exports, their economy is mostly driven by the service and energy sectors. After the discovery of a natural gas field in 1959, the Dutch became a fuel powerhouse. The Shell company became the largest and most internationally recognized Dutch company in the world. Besides the petroleum industry though, the Dutch are well known for their electronics and tech innovation. The company Philips invented the audio tape, which helped pioneer other formats like videotapes, CDs, DVDs, and Blu-rays.
Yeah, the company was Dutch, but keep in mind it was invented in Hasselt, Belgium.
Oh, Belgium. We love you, but don't try to take this from us.
Otherwise,
Yeah, just on that little bit, I know that's a kind of throwaway thing, but just, yeah, with regards to the companies, what's the Dutch company that you're most proud of? What's the most well-known internationally? And yeah, just that little throwaway one there with regards to Belgium. What's the relationship like between the Netherlands and countries like Belgium, Germany? I know there's maybe some rivalries there when it comes to things like sports, but on a general day-to-day, what's the stereotypes of that Dutch people have about these other countries? What's your feelings towards them?
as the Dutch have made great strides towards environmental protection. It's not uncommon to find animal crossing bridges to allow wildlife to cross over highways. Over 70 mammal species exist here, such as hares, hedgehogs, stoats, and deer. In addition, according to their government website, they produce over 65 billion euros in vegetable, fruit, flour, meat, and dairy products. Speaking of which, the modern orange-colored carrot was originally bred orange here in the Netherlands to specifically honor the king. Since then, orange carrots are now kind of an international staple. And speaking of which,
had no idea.
food! Some top notable notable dishes you guys, the Dutch geography peeps, suggested we mention include things like various types of stamppot, Dutch pancakes with powdered sugar, apple tart, bitterballen, split pea soup, rookworst, stroopwafels. So many potato dishes, brined herring and smoked eel. Gin was invented here, sorry Brits. For breakfast, chocolate sprinkles on toast is common. And the pride and joy of the nation, Gouda cheese. Yep, that's how you pronounce it, guys. Oh, and keep in mind,
Yeah, so tell me your favourite Dutch food as well. I do love to go for... one of the reasons I enjoy going to Amsterdam is the food. It's maybe not just about the Dutch food, it's so diverse, the offerings of food there. That's what I enjoy. I love the cosmopolitan feel of Amsterdam and how you can get so much different types of food. But when it comes to Dutch food, what's your favourite food? Again, what would you recommend people try when they come to the Netherlands? And yeah, stroopwafels, definitely one of the best. And with regards to Gouda, I always pronounce it Gouda, sorry about that, but Gouda cheese. What other cheeses are good in the Netherlands? Like, being British, I love cheddar cheese. I love that strong cheese. Is there anything that's similar in Netherlands, or what other cheeses are good in Netherlands?
they used to be the largest beer exporters in the world, Heineken being their top brand until Mexico beat them in 2010.
Oh wow, cool.
It's also important to note that you will probably find lots of Indonesian and Surinamese dishes like satay or salted cod buns, a little cultural hue that hints towards the colonial past, which brings us to...
Yeah, I live in Malaysia. I've been to Indonesia quite a lot. I still see that Dutch influence there with regards to the food and the language and so on. And yeah, with going back to the beer, obviously that's a kind of interesting debate in Europe. Who has the best beer? How do you think Dutch beer compares to like Belgian, German, the more Eastern European beers and things? Is the Dutch like up there with them?
Thank you, Noah. Follow him on Instagram.
Yep.
Okay, that just happened. Now, in Europe, you have all different types of people that operate with all different customs and ideologies. Here, they have two sayings that kind of sum up how a lot of their country operates. Meten is weten, and gezelligheid kent geen tijd. How is that, Dutchies? Terrible? Good? Well, you're gonna get what I give. Anyway, the country has about 17.5 million people and is the most densely populated nation in Europe. About 77% of the population identifies as Dutch, to whatever extent that may mean, whereas 10% are other Europeans, and the remainder are made up of other people groups, mostly Turks, Indonesians, as well as the Surinamese, and surprisingly, even some Americans. They use the euro as their currency, they use the type C and F plug outlets, and they drive on the right side of the road. Now, we all know that Dutch is the official language of the Netherlands. However, if you speak English, you should have no problem at all visiting. Netherlands has the highest proficiency in English out of any non-English official country in the world. Somewhere around 9 out of 10 Dutch people claim they can comfortably speak English, and around 94% of the country is in some way bilingual. Geography Anna told me a joke. Many times, Dutch kids will ask their parents,
Hey Mom,
Yes, honey.
why do we have to learn English, but the British don't have to learn Dutch?
Because our ancestors decided it would be a great idea to trade New York for Suriname and one small island in Indonesia.
It's important to note, though, that there are two other regional languages accepted in Dutch society. They are Frisian, spoken in the northern Friesland region, and the other being Papiamento, a Dutch Creole spoken in the ABC Islands. But it's already kind of well known that the Dutch are the tallest people on average.
Yeah, so with regards to the language as well, yeah, I never actually knew that Netherlands had the highest percentage of English speakers outside of Britain, which is pretty cool to know. I know I'm from Scotland, so I'm guessing a lot of people in the Netherlands might have some difficulty with my language. It's not the most clear. Hopefully if you watch more videos you may maybe get used to it, so I apologise for that. And yeah, interesting, got the Frisian language. I don't really know much about that or how that differs from normal Dutch, so maybe I'll watch some videos on that and try and learn about that. Tell me if you can speak that. If not, can you understand it?
In the ABC Islands, but it's already kind of well known that the Dutch are the tallest people on average in the world, men averaging around 6'1" and women around 5'7". And once again, here's 2016 Vincent explaining.
Latest studies have shown that natural selection has been the biggest reason. Being tall is equal to being more athletic, successful and healthy. Many educated men start families after their studies. Fast forward a couple of years, with length being very heritable, and the result is a nation of giants. Yeah, we're outbreeding short people.
Religion in the Netherlands is interesting because historically they used to be predominantly Christian, mostly Protestant, but today about about half the population identifies as unaffiliated, which depending on who you ask could be anything from the largest unaffiliated group, agnostics, at about 34%, to the growing number of eiatists at around 28%, which is kind of like a technical term for spiritual but not religious. Otherwise, Islam at about 5% of the population is mostly practiced by Turkish and Indonesian communities. Christianity, although not practiced regularly by most of the people, still plays a heavy cultural role in the Netherlands. Holidays like Christmas, Easter, Pentecost, and Ascension are still celebrated by everyone in a Dutch manner. At one point, there were
Yeah, that one, they said some controversy. What is that one? I remember.
Pentecost and Ascension are still celebrated.
I remember seeing something like that. I can't remember the name of it, but what is I guess the controversy is having the blackface, but where does the tradition come from? Tell me more about that as well. I love Christmas, so I'm I'm not Christian. I'm not really anything. I'd probably say more towards agnostic. I just don't really care that much about religion. But with regards to religion in Netherlands, have you seen it? Has it been like a steady decline over the years? Do you see it still declining? Yeah, tell me more about that.
Celebrated by everyone in a Dutch manner. At one point, they were a vast empire that spanned across every inhabited continent. Australia was at one point called New Holland, New Zealand, named after the Zeeland province, Tasmania, named after this Dutch guy, New York was once called New Amsterdam, and
yeah,
so
that's
on.
right.
Otherwise, what is the Dutch way of doing things? Many of you guys, the Dutch geography peeps, have told me there's a Dutch saying, act normal, which is ironic considering that they are almost anything but normal. And here's random Hannah to explain culture stuff.
Yeah, just with regards to the Dutch influence on the world, as I mentioned, I live in Malaysia, so I believe that the Dutch actually colonized Malaysia before the British, maybe even the Portuguese also, but yeah, tell me what you think. I know for sure they colonized Indonesia, that's why you see a lot of influence, but what do you know about that? Tell me more about that. I think that may be an interesting topic to learn more about as well.
Historically, the Dutch have always kind of had a counter-traditional mindset that shaped the way they developed as a nation. For one, they are one of the few remaining monarchies left in the world, technically a unitary parliamentary constitutional monarchy that limits the royal powers. And the people generally like their king. He even has a holiday to himself, and the entire country wears the national color of orange. Of course, the country is known for being a frontrunner in passing what many in the world see as controversial laws. They were the first country to legalize same-sex marriage, they have regulated legal prostitution, euthanasia, and they have a policy of tolerance towards recreational soft drugs like marijuana. People 18 years or older are allowed up to 5 grams on them, otherwise it's a misdemeanor. They are world-renowned.
Yeah, so tell me more about that. Is that common amongst the Dutch population to smoke and to do that, or is it more like to attract tourists and so on? And yeah, just going back to the king, how are the royal family in the Netherlands seen? Are they very, very respected? Has there been declining support for that, or is it just always steady? Being from the UK, I feel like there's been a decline in respect for the royal family, especially since King Charles. A lot of people don't really like him as much as they like the Queen, and there's been this very anti-monarchy kind of movement. I still support the monarchy. I like it. I think it's just an interesting part of our history and culture. Is it similar in Netherlands? Is there people who don't support it?
For excelling in field hockey, speed skating, and volleyball teams. Sailing is, of course, one of their longest pastimes. They even have a huge festival once every 5 years called the Sailed Amsterdam Festival. For some reason, it's common for people to give birth in their own homes as opposed to a hospital. About 1/3 of all babies are born this way.
Really? I had no idea about that. Why is that the case? Is it just tradition? Is there health benefits for that? Tell me your experience. I have 2 children, but they were born in hospital. I wouldn't even know where to start doing it at home. I guess you just bring in your own personal doctor or something like that to do it, or someone to deliver it, but I had no idea about that. It's interesting.
What about those clog things?
Ah, yes. Well, in the past, they actually served a very useful purpose. They were worn by farmers, fishermen, and artisans in the past to protect their feet from nails, fish hooks, and other sharp objects. Today, they
Makes
are
sense.
mostly sold as souvenirs, and very few people actually wear them, but they're pretty cool.
Oh, and hey, Anna, what's up with all those spinny windmill thingy-mabobbers?
Ah, yes, the iconic symbol of the Netherlands. Well, many of these historic windmills were actually used to pump out excess water to reclaim the land that they now use for farming, all before electricity. And
Wow,
as
so that's
for
the practical
music,
use of
the
them?
Actually, I got this
Never
one.
knew that,
Barb
sir.
said I could have my own segment in the show now instead of just being a one-liner guy.
Yeah, that's right. Keith has been upgraded, so yeah.
Oh, well, enjoy it.
Well, that just happened. Again, I guess everybody has superpowers now.
Historically speaking, the Dutch contributed much to the Baroque period at the end of the Renaissance, with numerous composers, organ players, and vocalists rooted in Christianity. Traditional clog dancing was also a cool way to add percussion to folk music in rural areas. Today, however, even though there are many genres the Dutch enjoy, electronic music reigns supreme. Most of the best well-known DJs in the EDM scene across the world are from the Netherlands. And the Amsterdam Dance Event, ADE, is the world's top and largest electronic music conference. So
Yeah, so it's interesting to me with regards to the history of music and arts and culture. Like Netherlands has such a strong history, so many influential people throughout history, like great artists and so on. For such for a country with such a relatively small population, really produce so many talented people. Maybe it goes back to the height, as they were mentioning, that produces those talented people. But I'm somebody who, during my teens and 20s, loved EDM. A lot of my favourite DJs like Ferry Corsten, Tiesto, even seen Sander Van Doren there. Like, I loved him back in the day. A lot in Hardwell more recently, of course. So many great DJs. Martin Garrix starting so young. Where does that come from? Who was the person, or where did that influence in electronic music actually come from, and why is it so many good DJs that have come from Netherlands? Is there good infrastructure for DJs? Is it just part of the culture, the same way maybe football is as well? But yeah, produce so many great DJs.
if you come out here, get ready to get shocked with some musical electricity.
Thank you, Keith. And speaking of the development of the Netherlands over time, let's talk about history in the quickest way I can put it. Hamburg and Bronze Age cultures, Iron Age with Celt and Germanic groups, Gallic Wars, the Romans come in, Frankish kingdoms, Charlemagne, blah blah blah. Friesland once had a Viking ruler, Lotharingia, Holy Roman Empire, confusing Burgundian and Spanish Habsburg and city-states, the Spanish takeover, Dutch revolt, 80 years of war against Spain, this dude is a hero, Golden Age and stock market, Dutch East India Company, exploring years, Dutch Empire, Napoleon drama, Belgium breaks away, Luxembourg breaks away, World War I, relatively neutral, World War II, attacked by Germans, not neutral, decolonialism after the war, mining golden age, founding co-members of the European Coal and Steel Community, which would later become the EU, government encourages over 500,000 people to move out, Euro adopted, and here we are today.
Why did they encourage people to move out? And yeah, so obviously that is a very brief run through of the history of the Netherlands. What interesting parts of Netherlands do you think I should learn about? What's the most interesting part? And something like the Dutch East Indies Company, that and the influence they had at the time, I think that's quite an interesting topic. Tell me what you know about that. But yeah, interesting history.
Some notable people you guys, the Dutch geography people suggest we mention, might include people like William of Orange, the first king, Michael de Ruyter, possibly the most famous painters, Vincent van Gogh and Rembrandt, Antony van Leeuwenhoek, Willem Barents, Abel Tasman, Anne Frank, Max Verstappen, Glennis Grace, Dick Bruna, these soccer players, these
Cruyff,
skaters,
man,
and
so
of course
good.
the royal family. And of course there's so many others I could have mentioned. Of course I butchered all the pronunciations, but we're really running out of time and we gotta finish this marathon. So without further
Yeah, just with regards to that, I'm a Glasgow Rangers fan, so we've had a lot of great Dutch players over the years. The De Boers, Arthur Newman, Van Bronckhorst. But one of my favourite players outside of Rangers for a long time was Edgar Davids, man. I loved him when he played for Juventus. Such a brilliant player, man. Like, not only was he like so aggressive and like played like that sort of way, he was so skillful, just a brilliant all-round player. And one of my earliest memories of being a football fan is like Marco van Basten. Even before I really kind of knew what football was, when I was that small, I knew Marco van Basten. I loved him as well.
ado, let's see who the Netherlands hangs out with. Now, there's a reason why it's called going Dutch when paying for a meal. The Netherlands likes to share. Systematic and mathematically equivalent to what is owed to each based on the merit they've earned. First of all, pretty much all the former colonies have some kind of amicable relation to the Netherlands. The Afrikaans language in South Africa is basically just an Africanized version of Dutch. Tons of Surinamese and Indonesians have been migrating to the Netherlands for decades. Otherwise, the USA and Canada are very close friends as well. During World War II, the royal family actually took refuge in Canada, and Canada actually quickly changed the law in which the hospital was temporarily considered extraterritorial territorial so that the princess could be born Dutch. To this day, the Netherlands sends tons of flowers every year in gratitude. For the US, the two go way back all the way to New Amsterdam before it was New York. The Dutch have immigrated to the US for centuries. 5 American presidents have been of Dutch descent. They are each other's third largest direct foreign investors. They are both charter members of NATO since 1949, and overall in most global affairs, the two usually work together as close allies. With Germany, it's like a funny love-hate relationship. Like the two share so much historically, both being under the same influences like the Western Roman Empire, the Franks, and even their first king, William of Orange, belonged to a German royal house. Then again, World War II was kind of like a jerk move, and the Dutch never really forgot about it. But nonetheless, they've moved on, and today things are fine. Germany is their largest trading partner, both in imports and exports. Many Germans and Dutch cross over and visit, study, live, and have families with each other's countries. When it comes to their best friend, however, almost every single Dutch person I have talked to has said their little brother they love picking fun on and calling stupid, Belgium. Or at least specifically the northern Flanders region of Belgium where the Dutch speakers are. And many see the Flanders region as just an extension of the Dutch realm. The royal families love each other. King William Alexander even bestowed the Knight Grand Cross to King Philip and his wife. Flemish and Dutch people have been intermarrying and cooperating side by side since the beginning. And even after Belgium's independence, they've still clung on as the only 2 Dutch official speaking nations in Europe. And even then, Belgium is only half Dutch speaking, so they really can't afford to sever ties. In conclusion, the lowest nation in Europe with the tallest people on earth, and with centuries of discovery, invention, innovation, and tradition, it's no wonder why the Dutch say they keep their heads above water. Stay tuned, New Zealand is...
Yeah, so that was excellent. A great overview, as I mentioned, of the country. Really gave me a great insight, learned a little bit more. People like King William of Orange had influence on Britain as well. Like, our history could have been so much different if it wasn't for someone like him. But I love that. It's such an interesting country, especially for it being like again, as I mentioned, a relatively low population. So much influence on the world with regards to culture, history, and I'm looking forward to learning more about that as well. So I'll be coming back with a lot more videos about the Netherlands. You can recommend what you'd like to see next. Tell me anything interesting about the Netherlands that wasn't mentioned on this video, but definitely a lot more videos coming soon. Thanks.